All right, welcome to the channel. So this channel is going to be everything sales related primarily, maybe some other life stuff as well, but we'll get there eventually. Today's video is going to be primarily about debunking the myth of needing a specific style or a specific framework to use for your prospect, no matter what industry you're in. You'll see like a lot of these sales guys, they'll talk about, their specific framework, their specific methods, there's specific questions that you need to be asking, or like the consultative approach or the question asking approach, or the emotional approach, or like any kind of approach that you want to take. They'll kind of purport that as the global approach that you need to take for any client in any industry that you happen to be in. And I'm going to tell you that that is not true. The reason it's not true is because you need to basically sell to the prospect, to the person that is in front of you. So you need to basically sell to them the way they want to buy, not the way you want them to buy. And what that basically means is that some prospects are going to be more oriented towards wanting to have a conversation, right? They want that communication. They want that rapport with you. They want to talk a lot, right? They don't want you to like go through your pitch. They don't want to have you go through your framework of all your questions, right? They just want to talk a lot. They want you to ask questions. They want you to like smile with them and laugh with them. They want you to like probe intelligently. They want you to like pepper in your pitch, right? So instead of like having a framework where you ask all your questions and then you do your pitch and then you do your close, it seems very contrived, right? With these individuals, like what they want is they want to have a conversation with you. They want to feel like it's natural. There's some other prospects that are super analytical, so they don't want the chit chat. They don't want the small talk. They don't want a lot of the questions. They want you to tell them what you can offer, right? They want to see your offer, but they also want you to be able to link that to their specific needs. So you have to be very intelligent and careful with the way you probe with your questions. Because if you ask too many questions in a way that's like too contrived or you're too curious, that can put them off. You can put them on the defense. So the answer in sales is that you need to be a chameleon. Now, what this doesn't mean is that you're being fake. So essentially what you're doing is you're taking different aspects of your personality and then you're putting them forward, right? So you are who you are. Like I can be reasonable, I can be rational, I could be emotional, I could be jovial, I could be anything, right? And you could probably even tell like the way you speak to your mother is different than the way you speak to your father, different when the way you relate to friend A versus friend B versus like your girlfriend or your wife or your boyfriend or whatever the case is, right? You're like parts of you will they'll reveal themselves depending on the person who's in front of you. Don't think that sales is any different. Sales is no different, right? You think that sales is different because you want to close, right? So you're thinking to yourself, if I follow my call flow and I do this every time in the same way, then I'll get the same results. And if you don't get the same result, then you're thinking that you need to somehow change like the system and the framework and the way you're asking. Sometimes you're just not paying attention to the person that you're talking to, right? If you just pay attention to them and you realize that, hey, if I was in this person's shoes, what would I want? Right? If I like to talk and I like to laugh and I like to share stories, do I want somebody to like interrupt me from me telling my story to like, hey, I understand your story, sir, but let me just let me put you in my little box here and let me take you through my system so that, we can cross off box A and box B and box C. And that way we can go to the close and I can see what happens. Well, that person is going to feel very put off by that entire process. So you have to be very careful with the way you actually approach every single person that you talk to. And when I say careful, I don't mean like you got to be on your toes, but like you got to read them, right? When you like say hello, say how, what's going on, reveal your personality, but also be very careful and say, okay, you know what? I could see that this person doesn't really like to like smile or chit chat or small talk. Some you will see at the very, very beginning, if they're responsive and you get them to laugh, that will take their walls down immediately and everything else is going to be open for you as far as you being able to like take them through the process. And then knowing that they're so comfortable, maybe you can crack a joke here or there. Like you got to just kind of go with the flow. Like you'll have your framework. So which means that you need to know specifically what kind of questions you're going to ask and what your pitch looks like. And you need to have like industry specific knowledge and your product or service specific knowledge so that you can actually put that forward to them when necessary. Like some prospects you can take them from the framework, but some of them, like I said, you have to be very dynamic and you have to adjust based off what they need. So that being the case, know your questions, know your product, know your service, know your industry, know how to handle objections. And we'll talk about all of this stuff we're going to talk about in the future, right? But what I need you to know right now is do not think that you need to adopt somebody's process, XYZ, this person and that person and this guy or this girl or whatever the case is. Don't think that you need to adopt anybody's process and like ask a question in a specific way, right? You'll hear a lot of this stuff about tonality, right? Curious tone. Like, can I ask you a question? Like, what did you mean? What did you mean by that when you said that? Like, if I said it like that, you might think if you saw me that it was kind of being disingenuous. I feel disingenuous. I feel like it's inauthentic. It has to be authentic to the moment as well. So you might say you need to ask a question in a specific way or with a specific tone, but that tone will change depending on who you're talking to. Again, right? So I could be curious by asking a variety of questions in different ways. So I could say, okay, gotcha. So what do you mean by that? Or, so what did you mean by that exactly? Or, okay, got it. So what do you mean by that? Right. So you could see, like, I'm saying the same question. I'm asking it in different tonalities depending on who I'm talking to. But sometimes you have to be a little bit more sensitive, and you have to soften your questions with like a permission-based model. And sometimes you'll hear this in the industry as well. You mind if I ask you a question? Right? Oh, yeah, sure. Why not? Yeah, go ahead and ask me a question. Of course you can ask me a question. So I'll talk about all of the different avatars of the prospects, all like the different types of questions that you could ask and the way you need to ask these questions. But keep one thing in mind: you need to, number one, be yourself, but bring out different parts of your personality depending on who you're talking to. Stop being a fucking robot, right? Stop being this person that you think other people need you to be, or like you need to be a specific way with a specific framework and the same way every single time for every single person, right? You need to be able to sell to the person that's in front of you. And in order for you to be able to sell to the person that's in front of you, you have to be able to relate to that person that's in front of you. And that's another thing as well. Like you talk about like relational selling, right? But that's just like another technique. That's another tactic where you think everything is relational selling. Some guys, they don't want that fucking style of selling. They don't want to be relationally sold to. They're like engineers, right? They're technical people that are just kind of sitting there like logical, analytical thinkers. And they're sitting there with their pen and their paper, and they're not all about the relational selling. Now, sometimes you can kind of sneak something in there. If you see maybe something in the background, you point it out, or you make a comment, they tell you about your job, and maybe you heard something in the news, so you bring it up, or you can kind of sneak that into your conversation, but you have to wait for them to be able to give you that information before you decide to like pursue that track. So don't make any assumptions. Don't have one style and be rigid with that style, no matter what that is. You got to be a little bit more flexible, a little bit more adaptable, right? So I'm going to leave that there for now. Hope you found that helpful. This is a new channel, so I'm going to start to put out a lot more of this content. So if you like it, like the video, it would definitely help. Subscribe to the channel, and look forward to seeing you soon.